Are you tired of always teaching the same grammar points? Or are you intimidated by grammar lessons? It seems like most coursebooks have similar grammar points, sometimes even sequenced in a very similar way. How can you make your grammar lessons stand out? I'm Rubens Heredia, one of your Pavilion ELT bloggers, and in this video I'll share with you grammar features that are often ignored but which can really help your students communicate more accurately, sound more natural, and feel more confident using English. Want to know what they are? So come with me. Learning grammar is, for many people, synonymous with learning a language. Some of our oldest methods and approaches are largely based on teaching grammar. Still, many English teachers find grammar one of the most challenging areas to teach. Some teachers I tutor at the CELTA, especially those who do not have a lot of experience as a second language learner, lack confidence in their explicit knowledge of grammar. On the other end of this spectrum, some teachers end up focusing too much on grammar, worrying more about passing on the knowledge of rules and patterns than about real-life applicability and relevance of the grammar we teach. Some of the concepts I'll talk about are pretty basic, some not so much, but it's a good idea for us to remember that learning is not really a straight line. In the latest edition of Modern English Teacher, Matt Doan shared some assumptions that he has been challenging. According to him, another eye-opening discovery for me was that of U-shaped behavior, which is the tendency of learners over time to initially get something right, then start getting it wrong before eventually getting it right again. While teachers may get frustrated at this apparent regression and put it down to laziness or lack of revision, many academics believe this pattern to actually be an indication that the learners are developing a more complex mental representation of language, and that when getting things wrong, they are going through the process of restructuring their interlanguage. So let's cut to the chase. Grammar point number 1, countable and uncountable nouns. I know, you already talk about countable and uncountable nouns in your lessons. However, is it enough? Basically, every coursebook will have a lesson in which countable and uncountable nouns are taught, often in the context of food, which is a great way to simplify the concept. You count apples, but don't count sugar. You don't count bread, liquid, gases, cheese, chocolate, and the list goes on and on. As teachers, we try to group these nouns logically to help our students understand and remember. Or just give up on finding logic and tell learners to simply remember them. Yes, I'm talking about advice and information. In a very interesting article for Modern English Teacher, Sam, Wu, and Ho shared the research on a very confusing countable and uncountable noun, food and foods. According to them, we are aware that the countability of many nouns is easily discernible, while others have no immediately apparent reason why they are countable or uncountable. However, the unfortunate fact is that there is also a large group of nouns whose countability and plural markings are wishy-washy, whose countability can be ambiguous depending on the context, example, fruit, kindness, and tea. Even beginners in English will encounter in reading and listening, and produce in writing and speaking plenty of them. Another complicated factor is that we end up assuming that students know what countable and uncountable nouns are. Lessons and units of work dealing more extensively with countability are usually present only at lower levels, so students who skip some of those more basic levels might never actually have a moment where they learn what countable and uncountable nouns are, or they might forget it after a while. And this can have great consequences for our students' accuracy level. After all, the fact that the nouns countable or uncountable will impact the quantifiers we can use, the use of articles, the form of the verb, etc., etc. Grammar point number 2, the lexical verbs. The lexical verbs are very common in English, but not only in English. Languages as different as Mandarin Chinese, Arabic, Farsi, and Romance languages have them. Take have a walk, for example. Would you say that the core of the meaning is in have or walk? Well, you could also say take a walk and go for a walk with very little change in meaning, right? The same applies to very common expressions like have a shower, give a hug, make a comment, etc. Some of the most common lexical verbs are have, give, go, make, and do, but the verb take might take the crown here. According to Scott Thornbury, part of the phenomenal versatility of take is that it is what it's called a lexical verb. That is, it forms idiomatic combinations with nouns where the main informational load is in the noun, not the verb, as in take a photo, take a shower, take a nap, etc. Take, in these expressions, is virtually devoid of meaning and serves a purely grammatical function, a bit like an auxiliary. Other common verbs of this type are have, give, and make. The key here is that the grammar structure, including the lexical verbs, is very simple, but allows for a huge number of word combinations and meanings. So by learning one simple structure and concept, students can dramatically increase their vocabulary range, sound more natural, and why not, even play around with the words they already know to discover new expressions. Grammar point number 3, stranded prepositions. Have you ever been told at some point in your life not to finish your sentences with a preposition because it's wrong? Or maybe not wrong, but just something you can do in informal spoken conversation, never in formal writing. Well, this seems to be kind of a myth. Preposition stranding or stranded prepositions happen when a preposition such as to, about, in, etc. is separated from its object, the noun or the pronoun it modifies, and it's left at the end of the sentence. They are quite common in questions, as in, what are you talking about? And embedded questions, like, I'm not sure what you're thinking about, and relative clauses, such as, he's the guy I was talking about. Stranded prepositions are very common in everyday conversation, not just in English, but in other Germanic languages like Danish, German, and Dutch. So why is it that some people say that it's wrong or too informal? Well, it might have to do with Latin. You see, Latin does not allow for preposition stranding, and it used to be a language of prestige, so some believe that the avoidance of stranded prepositions is an effort to make English a little bit more like Latin, you know? So, is it a good idea to teach our students to avoid preposition stranding? According to John Potts, avoiding a postponed preposition may cause even more problems than it is intended to solve. And since the stranded preposition isn't in any case a grammatical rule, but a matter of style and perhaps elegant syntax, it is usually better to leave it where it is. As someone with a Latin-based language as a mother tongue, where preposition stranding is a no-go, it wasn't easy for me to wrap my head around sentences ending in prepositions, and they didn't come naturally to me. It was only after noticing it in different types of sentences and being corrected by my teachers many times that I was able to deploy them more confidently. Maybe the same thing can happen to your students. Grammar item number 4, articles. Another allegedly very simple one, right? Articles come really naturally to those of us coming from languages that have them. So much so that it's often hard even to explain why we feel the need to include an article or not in a sentence. Appropriate use of articles helps prevent ambiguity and ensure the reader or listener understands the context. It is also crucial for sounding natural and avoiding awkward phrasing when communicating. Most coursebooks will have lessons on articles, some more clearly presented than others, and I'm willing to bet that there's a gap-fill activity there somewhere for students to decide which article to use, if any. Isabel Haller-Grieg makes several good points in an article for AT Professional. One of them is about how problematic this type of activity can be for elementary students. According to her, article usage often depends on context rather than the rule, and sometimes not enough context is given to help the students make an effective choice. Gap-fill activities often lead students to believe that an article is required, and they often forget that just because there's a blank, it doesn't mean they have to complete it with an article. There are many situations where no article is needed. Gap-fill activities do not promote critical thinking, especially if no discussion follows the activity. Instead, they may promote guessing. Gap-fill activities do not offer examples of correct article usage in natural language. Remember that the coursebook lesson on articles should not be the only opportunity for students to learn and reflect upon their use. Language feedback and error correction can go a long way in helping your students get it right. After all, when we do have articles in our first language, we do get them wrong many times as a child and get corrected many times as well. So there you have it. 4 grammatical features that may sound really basic, but that can really help your students communicate more accurately and naturally. But I'd love to hear from you. Do you also think teachers overlook these grammar items? Which of these features do you sometimes overlook? Do you have any hot tips or activities for teaching them? Share your ideas in the comments below and join me on all social media at WhatIsELT. Keep learning and keep teaching.